The wind scattered autumn leaves across the playground as Xavier Evans tightened his worn jacket around his shoulders, watching his 6-year-old son Noah race toward the slide. The park had become their Sunday ritual-free entertainment when every dollar in his bank account had to be carefully allocated between rent, groceries, and the mounting pile of medical bills from Noah's asthma treatments. "Dad, watch this." Noah called out, his small face alight with excitement as he prepared to descend the twisting yellow slide for what must have been the 10th time. Xavier smiled and gave him a thumbs up. "I'm watching, buddy. Show me what you've got." As Noah slid down with a squeal of delight, Xavier felt the familiar mixture of joy and anxiety that had become his constant companion since his wife's death 3 years ago. At 32, he hadn't expected to be a widower and single father, struggling to make ends meet as a freelance graphic designer while juggling parenthood. He glanced around the park, noting how empty it was for a Sunday afternoon. The cool October air had likely kept most families at home. His gaze landed on a woman sitting alone on a bench near the pond, tapping furiously on her laptop. She seemed oddly out of place in the deserted playground, dressed in what appeared to be an expensive camel coat, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, designer sunglasses perched on her nose despite the overcast day. "Dad, can I have my inhaler?" Noah asked, suddenly appearing at his side, slightly breathless from his exertions. Xavier immediately reached into his backpack. "Of course, buddy. Take it easy, okay? Deep breaths." As he helped Noah with his inhaler, Xavier noticed the woman on the bench looking their way. Their eyes met briefly before she returned to her laptop. "I'm okay now," Noah assured him, handing back the inhaler. "Can I go on the swings?" "Sure thing, buddy. I'll be right here." As Noah raced off again, Xavier settled on a bench where he could keep a clear view of his son. He pulled out his sketch pad. He never went anywhere without it. While Noah played, Xavier could sometimes squeeze in a bit of work on his freelance projects. "Excuse me," a voice broke through his concentration. "Is this yours?" Xavier looked up to see the woman from the bench holding Noah's blue knit hat. He hadn't even noticed it had blown away. "Yes, thank you," he said, reaching for the hat. Up close, he could see that she was around his age, with striking green eyes and an air of quiet confidence. "No problem," she replied with a smile. It was tumbling across the grass like a tumbleweed. Xavier couldn't help but notice her well-manicured nails and the subtle gleam of what had to be a very expensive watch peeking out from beneath her coat sleeve. "I'm Xavier," he said, surprising himself with the introduction. "Kira," she replied simply. "Kira Owens." An awkward silence fell between them, broken only when Noah called out from the swings. Dad, look how high I'm going," Xavier waved at his son. "That's my boy, Noah. He's got more energy than I know what to do with." Kira smiled, her expression softening as she watched Noah. "He seems like a great kid." "The best," Xavier agreed. "Though between his energy and his asthma, he keeps me on my toes." He instantly regretted sharing that personal detail with a stranger. To his surprise, Kira nodded in understanding. "My nephew has asthma too. Those medications can be a real—" She hesitated. Challenge. Xavier appreciated her tactful wording. Challenge was one way to put it. Financially crippling would be another. "Do you come here often?" Kira asked, gesturing to the park. Xavier chuckled. "Every Sunday, rain or shine. Noah loves it here, and he caught himself before saying free and instead finished with, it's our special time together." Kira glanced at the open sketchpad on his lap. "You're an artist." "Graphic designer," Xavier clarified. "Freelance, I'm working on a logo for a local bakery." "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the sketchpad. Xavier hesitated but handed it over. He wasn't used to showing his preliminary sketches to anyone but clients. Kira studied the design with what seemed like a professional eye. "This is really good. The font choice is excellent, approachable but still sophisticated, perfect for a bakery trying to appear both artisanal and welcoming." Xavier blinked in surprise. That's exactly what I was going for. Do you work in marketing or something? A small smile played at her lips. Something like that. I work with a lot of brands. Before Xavier could ask more, Noah came running up, cheeks flushed with exertion and excitement. Dad, I'm hungry. Can we eat our sandwiches now? Sure thing, buddy, Xavier said, ruffling his son's hair. He turned to Kira, suddenly embarrassed by their modest packed lunch. Well, it was nice meeting you. Likewise, Kira said, handing back his sketch pad. She looked at Noah and smiled. Enjoy your lunch. As she walked back to her bench, Xavier couldn't help but feel a strange pull toward her. There was something intriguing about Kira Owens, something beneath the polished exterior that seemed genuinely warm. Who was that lady, Dad? Noah asked as they settled on their bench, and Xavier unpacked their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Just someone being nice, Xavier replied, watching as Kira returned to her laptop. She found your hat. They ate their lunch while Noah chatted about his adventures on the playground and his upcoming school science project. Xavier listened attentively, pushing thoughts of the intriguing woman from his mind. After lunch, Noah wanted to feed the ducks at the pond. As they approached with their bag of duck-friendly seed, Xavier had researched that bread was bad for ducks. They found themselves near Kira's bench again. Going to feed the ducks? She asked, looking up from her laptop. Noah nodded enthusiastically. We have special duck food because bread makes them sick. Dad read about it on the internet. Kira smiled, glancing at Xavier with what looked like approval. That's very thoughtful of you both. Would you like to join us? The words left Xavier's mouth before he could think better of them. Kira hesitated, looking at her laptop and then at her watch. Something in her expression changed, as if she'd made a decision. You know what? I would. I've been working for hours and could use a break. She closed her laptop, tucked it into an expensive-looking leather bag, and joined them by the pond's edge. Noah immediately took charge, showing Kira how to toss the seed gently onto the water's surface. Not too much in one spot, he instructed seriously, or the bigger ducks will get it all. Xavier watched the interaction with amusement. His son had never been shy around adults, but there was something endearing about the way he earnestly explained duck-feeding ethics to this elegant stranger. You're very knowledgeable about ducks, Kira said to Noah, following his instructions carefully. Dad and I come here a lot, Noah explained. We're kind of duck experts now. Kira laughed, a genuine sound that made her seem suddenly more approachable. Well, I'm grateful for the expert guidance. As they fed the ducks, Xavier learned that Kira was in town temporarily, staying at a hotel downtown. She was vague about her work, mentioning only that she traveled frequently for business. I don't usually work weekends, she admitted, but we have a major product launch next month, and there never seems to be enough hours in the day. I know that feeling, Xavier said, thinking of his late nights working after Noah was in bed. Dad works at night sometimes, Noah chimed in. I can hear him typing on his computer when I wake up to go to the bathroom. Xavier felt a flush of embarrassment at this revelation of his precarious work-life balance. Sometimes deadlines require a little extra effort, he said lightly. Kira nodded, understanding in her eyes. The hustle never stops, does it? There was something in her tone that made Xavier wonder if she really did understand not just the general concept of working hard, but the specific pressure of needing to accept every job, stretch every dollar, and still somehow be present for your child. As the afternoon wore on, Noah's energy finally began to wane. He yawned widely, leaning against Xavier's side. I think that's our cue to head home, Xavier said, gathering their things. It was nice meeting you, Kira. You too, she replied, looking genuinely reluctant to see them go. Both of you. Noah, fighting another yawn, asked, Will you be here next Sunday? We come every Sunday. Kira looked surprised by the question. I'm not sure. I might still be in town. You should come feed the ducks with us again, Noah said decisively. Xavier started to apologize for his son's forwardness, but Kira shook her head with a smile. If I'm still here, I'd like that. They said their goodbyes, and Xavier held Noah's hand as they walked toward the bus stop. He tried not to think about how unlikely it was that they would see Kira again, or why that thought left him feeling oddly disappointed. The following week passed in a blur of work deadlines, Noah's school activities, and the constant juggling act that was Xavier's life. By Sunday morning, he'd almost forgotten about their encounter with Kira until Noah asked over breakfast. "Do you think that nice lady will be at the park today?" Xavier tempered his son's expectations. "Probably not, buddy. She was just visiting town for work, remember?" Noah nodded, looking slightly disappointed but quickly bouncing back. "Can we bring extra duck food just in case?" "Sure thing," Xavier agreed, not wanting to dampen his son's enthusiasm. When they arrived at the park, Xavier was shocked to see a familiar figure sitting on the same bench, this time with a paper cup of coffee beside her laptop. Kira looked up as they approached, her face breaking into a genuine smile that made Xavier's heart skip. "You came back," he said, unable to hide his surprise. "I had some business that needed attention," she replied with a slight shrug, but there was something in her eyes that made Xavier wonder if that was the whole truth. Noah, delighted to see her, immediately began telling Kira about his week at school and the science project he was working on. Xavier was about to apologize for his son's chatter when he noticed how attentively Kira was listening, asking thoughtful questions that showed she was genuinely interested. They fell into an easy rhythm that day, and then the next Sunday, and the one after that. Each week, Xavier expected Kira not to be there, and each week she was, with increasingly flimsy explanations about why her business in the city was taking so long. Over those Sundays, Xavier learned small details about Kira: that she had grown up in Chicago, that she was allergic to strawberries, that she had a dog named Einstein who was staying with her sister while she traveled. What she actually did for work remained vague, though Xavier gathered it had something to do with technology and corporate management. For her part, Kira seemed genuinely interested in Xavier's life, his design work, his struggles and triumphs with Noah, the children's book he dreamed of illustrating someday but never had time to work on. She never showed pity when he mentioned financial challenges, just understanding and sometimes practical suggestions that were actually helpful. By the fourth Sunday, it felt like they'd known each other much longer. That day, when Noah ran off to play with a few other children who had arrived at the playground, Kira and Xavier found themselves alone on the bench. "Can I ask you something?" Xavier said, finally voicing a question that had been nagging at him. "Why do you keep coming back here?" "I mean, no offense, but there must be more exciting things to do in the city than sit on a park bench every Sunday." Kira was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the lid of her coffee cup. "The truth is, I haven't taken a real break in years. These Sundays in the park. They've become the highlight of my week." She looked at him directly, "and if I'm being completely honest, it's not just the park I keep coming back for." Xavier felt a warmth spread through his chest. "Well, Noah certainly enjoys your company." "Just Noah?" she asked, a teasing note in her voice. Before Xavier could respond, Noah came racing back, asking if they could all go for ice cream. As they walked to the small shop just outside the park, Xavier felt Kira's hand briefly touch his, a fleeting moment of connection that left his skin tingling. At the ice cream shop, Noah chatted animatedly while devouring his chocolate cone. Xavier was acutely aware of how Kira fit so naturally into their little outing, helping Noah with napkins when ice cream dripped down his hand, laughing at his jokes, sharing tastes of her pistachio scoop. "What do you do during the week here?" Xavier finally asked as they walked back through the park. "When you're not working, I mean," Kira hesitated. "Mostly work, honestly. Hotel room service, conference calls, emails." "That sounds lonely," Xavier said without thinking. A shadow passed over Kira's face. "It is, sometimes." In that moment, looking at her profile against the autumn trees, Xavier realized he was falling for this mysterious woman who had wandered into their Sunday ritual. It was ridiculous, he told himself. He knew so little about her, and what little he did know suggested they lived in completely different worlds. And yet, there was undeniable connection between them, not just attraction, though that was certainly present, but something deeper. The way she listened when he talked, really listened. The way she treated Noah with respect, never talking down to him. The genuine delight she seemed to take in their simple park outings. "You should have dinner with us sometime," Noah announced suddenly, looking up at Kira. "Dad makes really good spaghetti." Xavier felt his face heat with embarrassment. "Noah, Kira probably has much fancier dinner options than my spaghetti." "Actually," Kira said slowly, "spaghetti dinner sounds perfect. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in, well, longer than I'd like to admit." "Really?" Xavier asked, surprised. "Really," she affirmed. "If the invitation's genuine, I'd love to come." That's how, the following Tuesday, Kira Owens ended up in Xavier's modest 2-bedroom apartment, sitting at his second-hand dining table while he prepared his famous spaghetti bolognese in the tiny kitchen. Xavier had spent the previous evening frantically cleaning, acutely aware of how humble his living situation was compared to whatever luxury Kira must be accustomed to. But if she noticed the scuffed furniture or the patched spot on the sofa, she gave no indication. Instead, she had arrived with a bottle of wine, a bakery box of cupcakes, and a small gift for Noah, a book about ducks that he immediately buried his nose in. "Can I help with anything?" she asked, coming to stand beside Xavier in the kitchen. "You can tell me about your day," Xavier suggested, stirring the sauce. "A real answer, not the vague 'it was fine' you usually give." Kira smiled ruefully. "Caught me. Today was actually pretty intense. We're finalizing details on a major acquisition, a smaller tech company with an incredible innovation in AI that will completely transform our main product line." Xavier noticed the animation in her voice, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about the technology. "You really love what you do, don't you?" "I do," she admitted, "though lately I've been questioning the balance or lack thereof in my life." She glanced toward Noah, who was still absorbed in his duck book. "Seeing you with Noah. It's made me think about what I might be missing by being so focused on my career." Xavier handed her the wooden spoon. "Here, stir this while I drain the pasta, and for what it's worth, it's all about trade-offs. You have exciting work and financial security. I have more time with Noah, but constant stress about money. No one has it all figured out." "That's surprisingly insightful," Kira said, taking the spoon. "I have my moments," Xavier replied with a grin. Dinner was a relaxed affair, with Noah dominating the conversation with facts from his new duck book. After Noah went to bed, Xavier and Kira sat on the small balcony with glasses of wine, the city lights spread out before them. "Thank you for tonight," Kira said softly. "This was exactly what I needed. Mediocre spaghetti and a 6-year-old's lecture on duck migration patterns," Xavier teased. "Warmth," Kira corrected him. "A real connection. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something from me, a decision, an endorsement, a budget approval." Xavier studied her in the dim light. "What exactly do you do, Kira? I mean specifically, you always change the subject when I ask." Kira took a long sip of wine before answering. "I'm the CEO of Horizon Technologies." Xavier nearly choked on his wine. Horizon Technologies. The Horizon Technologies, the company that makes the operating system for half the world's smartphones and tablets, Kira nodded, looking almost apologetic. "That's the one. But that's your." Xavier struggled to reconcile this information with the woman who sat beside him in jeans and a simple sweater, who happily fed ducks and listened to Noah's endless stories. "You must be wealthy." "Yes, busy, extremely. Terrified that knowing this will change how you see me." "Absolutely." Xavier sat back in his chair, processing this revelation. It explained so much: her vagueness about work, the expensive accessories, her surprise at simple pleasures like feeding ducks and home-cooked meals. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he finally asked. Kira's fingers tightened around her wine glass. Because for the first time in years, someone was seeing me just me. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the woman whose decisions affect thousands of employees. Just Kira, the woman who enjoys Sunday afternoons in the park. She looked at him directly. I didn't want to lose that. Xavier understood then that despite their vastly different circumstances, Kira was, in some ways, just as isolated as he was him by financial struggle, her by success and position. So, he said, reaching for her hand, you're saying I've been hanging out with a billionaire for weeks and didn't even get her to pay for ice cream once. The tension broke as Kira laughed, relief flooding her features. Next time, all the ice cream is on me. Deal, Xavier said, squeezing her hand. That night marked a turning point. With her secret revealed, Kira became more open about her life. Xavier learned about the pressures she faced running a global technology company, the loneliness of living in hotel suites and corporate apartments, the weight of responsibility for thousands of employees. In turn, he shared more about his own struggles, the difficulty of finding steady design work while being available for Noah, the medical bills that kept him awake at night, the dreams he'd put on hold after his wife's death. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. Kira joined their Sunday park ritual, but also began appearing in their lives in other ways: dinner at Xavier's apartment, a trip to the Children's Museum with Noah, quiet evenings talking on the balcony after Noah was asleep. Xavier was careful to maintain boundaries, refusing Kira's offers to help financially even when he was struggling. I'm not looking for a benefactor, he told her firmly one night. If this is going to work between us, it has to be as equals. Kira respected his position, though she found creative ways to contribute, bringing groceries for dinner, because she was already at the store. Finding a spare tablet that would be perfect for Noah's educational games, mentioning a friend's company that needed a new design package when she knew Xavier was between projects. For her part, Kira found herself drawn deeper into their world. She arranged to work remotely from the city for extended periods, claiming to her board that she needed to personally oversee the integration of their new acquisition. In reality, she was building something much more precious, a relationship with Xavier and Noah that filled a void in her life she hadn't fully acknowledged before. 3 months after their first meeting on that park bench, Xavier invited Kira to Noah's school play. Sitting beside her in the elementary school auditorium, watching Noah perform his 3 lines as a tree with perfect solemnity, Xavier realized he was in love with her. The thought terrified him. Their worlds were so different. Eventually, she would have to return to her real-life board meetings and global product launches and the rarefied air of corporate success. How could he and Noah fit into that existence? And yet, the thought of losing her was equally terrifying. That night, after Noah was in bed, Xavier voiced his fears. Where is this going, Kira? You have a life waiting for you, an important life. I have responsibilities here to Noah. I can't uproot him, and I wouldn't want to expose him to the kind of scrutiny that would come with being associated with someone like you. Kira was quiet for a long moment. Do you remember that first day in the park when Noah had his asthma attack? Xavier nodded, unsure where she was going with this. I saw how you handled it with such calm competence, putting his needs first without making him feel anxious or different. I think that's when I first started falling for you. Kira, let me finish, she said gently. I've been thinking about this for weeks, Xavier. About what matters, about what kind of life I want. Yes, my work is important and I'm good at it, but I've built a company that can function without my physical presence in every meeting. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to open a regional office here. I'm saying I want to create a life that includes Sunday afternoons in the park and school plays and home-cooked spaghetti. With you, with Noah. She took his hands in hers. If you'll have me. Xavier felt a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly overwhelmed him. You would do that. Change your whole life. I wouldn't see it as changing my life, Kira corrected him. I'd see it as completing it. It wasn't an immediate happily ever after. There were adjustments to make, compromises on both sides. Xavier had to come to terms with dating a woman whose net worth had more zeros than he could comfortably contemplate. Kira had to learn how to integrate her high-powered career with a relationship and quasi-step-parenthood. There were moments of doubt when Xavier felt out of place at a corporate function Kira needed to attend, when Noah had a bad day and only wanted his dad, when Kira's work required her to travel for a week and she returned exhausted and questioning her choices. But there were beautiful moments, too. Kira helping Noah with his science project, Xavier designing the logo for Kira's new educational foundation, family movie nights where Kira's encyclopedic knowledge of old films had Noah in stitches, quiet moments when Xavier would find Kira and Noah reading together on the couch. 6 months after Kira's revelation about her identity, she purchased a brownstone in the city with a garden for Noah to play in, a top-floor studio with perfect light for Xavier's design work, and a home office with enough technology to run her global empire. "Is this too much?" she asked anxiously as she showed Xavier the property. "I know you've been hesitant about accepting anything from me, but I thought if it was our home, all three of us, it might be different." Xavier looked around the space, trying to imagine their life, their Noah racing up and down the stairs, family dinners in the sunny kitchen, evenings in the garden. It was more than he'd ever dreamed of providing for his son, but it wasn't just the luxury that appealed to him. It was the promise of building something lasting with this remarkable woman who had wandered into their lives on a park bench. "On one condition," he said finally. "Anything," Kira replied. "We get married first. Old-fashioned, I know, but I want to do this right. I want us to be a family, officially, before we create this new life together." Kira's eyes filled with tears. "Xavier Evans, are you proposing to me?" Xavier smiled, pulling her close. "I guess I am, though I should warn you, the ring might not be quite what you're accustomed to." "The ring doesn't matter," Kira said, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Just the man offering it." They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony in the park where they'd met. Noah served as best man, proudly carrying the rings and only getting distracted once by a particularly interesting duck. As they exchanged vows under a canopy of autumn leaves, Xavier marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a chance encounter on a park bench to building a life together, a life that balanced Kira's corporate responsibilities with Xavier's design career, and, most importantly, created a loving, stable home for Noah. At the reception, held in the garden of their new home, Noah tugged on Xavier's sleeve during the first dance. "Dad, are you happy?" he asked with the directness only a child could manage. Xavier looked at his son, then at his new wife, who was laughing with their small group of guests. "Incredibly happy, buddy. Are you?" Noah considered the question with serious deliberation. "Yes," he decided. "Kira makes really good pancakes and she never gets mad when I talk about ducks too much. Plus, she makes you smile all the time." "She does, doesn't she?" Xavier agreed, ruffling his son's hair. Later that night, as they swayed together under strings of garden lights, Kira rested her head against Xavier's shoulder. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" "For showing me what matters, for giving me a family. For loving me, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just me." Xavier tightened his arms around her. "Well, thank you for sitting on that park bench and changing our lives." "Best business decision I ever made," Kira said with a smile, rising on her toes to kiss him as the autumn breeze scattered leaves around their feet, just as it had on that first fateful Sunday.